Hello, hello. It is Sarah Waggle, astrologer and leadership coach. I wanted to release this video. This is where do we go from here? Because I know this week has been full of ups and downs, and I'm not just referring, although the main event was, of course, the United States presidential election, but to be fair, many of us are going through a lot of different life things concurrently with the presidential election. So I don't want to discount those who may be going through something that has nothing to do with the election. Um, and so where do we go from here? This is a very, very pivotal time. I'm going to show you a chart in just a second. But I have mentioned it many, many times that we are on the verge of major, major, major change globally, personally, individually, in our lives as far as groups, communities, um, and everything. Financially, we are on the verge of change. And so what is transpiring right now has everything to do with the change that is very close on the horizon. I am filming this on November 7th. Actually, I think it's the morning of the 8th at this point. It's pretty late, but I took a nap, so I'm wide awake. Um, so it's November 8th. So we are 11 days away from Pluto entering Aquarius for the next 20 years. And Pluto is about transformation, and it is camped out at 29 degrees of Capricorn. Um, and for a little perspective, the United States Pluto is 27 degrees Capricorn. So a lot of the last, like we'll just say 3 years, has been about the United States Pluto return. This is something that, on a personal level, we don't experience because we don't live that long. This is a 250-year transit. Um, and so Pluto moving into Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius previously was in 1776, 77 when the United States Revolution began, and the signing of the first uh, Continental Congress, and I believe the United States Constitution. I'm almost sure. So there's several different ways of thinking about the chart, but the chart for the United States is July 4th, 1776, when the Constitution was signed. And so that gave us a Pluto at 27 degrees of Capricorn, an Aquarius moon, and a Uranus in Gemini. And so the significance of this time is that we have Pluto moving into where Pluto was at the uh, at the beginning of the United States Revolution. We have Uranus at the end of Taurus. Actually, here, let me just show you all a chart because it might make more sense that way. Hang on. Okay. So let me turn my light down. 1 second. Sorry, sorry. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna make things a little bit better. All right. So this is an Aries rising chart. Um, I don't think my app provides me with the United States chart. I need to find a copy of it. But I haven't really needed one until now. But now I need one. Pluto's up here at 29 degrees of Capricorn, where he's been for most of this year, other than earlier this year when he was at 0 degrees Aquarius. But as soon as he moves back into Aquarius on November 19th, is when we are in revolutionary times. Um, uh, Uranus is down here. There we go. In Taurus, finishing up in Taurus. When Uranus goes direct later, actually early next year, by July, he'll make his way into Gemini. Now, Uranus and Gemini, 80-year transit, 80 to 85-year orb. Uranus and Gemini was the American Revolution. It was also World War II. And so things like that are happening. But then also we have Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. There we go. Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. They will both, Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. They will both move into 0 degrees Aries next year. Neptune in April and then Saturn in May. Now, they will not exactly conjunct next year at 0 degrees Aries. They will exactly conjunct in February of 2026 at 0 degrees of Aries, but they will be in a dance as soon as they both go retrograde and Saturn catches up to Neptune. They will be in a conjunction dance for all of 2025 and into 2026. So that's a thing. I left the North Node on this chart. I don't have any of the personal planets on here, but I did leave the North Node because I think it's important to know that the North Node and the South Node will move from Aries, Libra to Pisces and Virgo. So let's talk about Pisces and what Pisces is significant about. Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. It represents duality. On the body, it rules the feet because it reminds us to be grounded in our humanity. But Pisces rules water, like deep waters, oceans. We've had a lot of hurricane activity. We've also had globally, we've had lots of water storms occurring. We had a port strike earlier in October around the Libra solar eclipse, new moon solar eclipse on October 2nd. There have been multiple issues related to medical care and hospitals and whatnot. There's been a lot of change around those. There's been a lot of this is just from my own family's experience. We've had situations where people have gotten septic infections and whatnot. So things related to hospitals, mental health, people being mentally unstable, more mentally unable to process what is going on. Pisces also represents things like illusion and delusion and kind of fogginess. Neptune and Venus kind of work in that illusion of, what do I want to say here? Neptune and Venus, I'm mentioning Venus because Venus is exalted in Pisces, but Neptune and Saturn, maybe I should just stick with the planets on the screen. Neptune and Saturn refer to things like your own spirituality, your sovereignty, your faith, your trust in God's source universe. And also, we're also talking about the unseen. And so Pisces or even 12th house energy can be the unseen or secrets, as can Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. There we go. Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn also represents secrets and secret meetings and things like that. So I'm bringing that up because there's a lot that we may not know, a lot that we don't know, right? A lot that maybe is not being presented to us in a truthful way or in a way of integrity. And it's meant to hide specifically things about authority, government systems, structure, and whatnot. It's meant to hide that from us, to hide what's really going on. It's almost like we're in the Wizard of Oz, and the Great Oz is a little old man hiding behind the curtain. That's what this time feels like to me, is the Wizard of Oz. That we are all going after the Great Oz, the great savior, and the great savior is a little old man behind a curtain pulling puppet strings. I don't remember what he was doing in the Wizard of Oz, but so where do we go from here? Lean into your faith, your trust that God's source universe, that the planets are working in your best interest and in the best interest of all of humanity, even if it does not feel like it in this moment in time. because I know for a lot of people, it does not feel like it. It's unsettling, it's unnerving. But this is a very critical moment in time for humanity. And we all need each other to get through it. And we all need faith in our spirituality, in God, in source, in the planets, in the stars, in our guardian angels. This time and space is so significant. It's very unknown because we haven't had a time. Think about that. We haven't had a time when since 1776, but even then, Neptune wasn't changing signs, just Pluto and Uranus. Pluto was switching to Aquarius and Uranus was switching to Gemini, but we didn't have Neptune switching signs, specifically at the last degree of the entire zodiac, heading into the first degree of the zodiac. Now, and so I mentioned the nodes, the north and the south node. So the North Node will move into Pisces. This is in early mid-January, I think. I forgot to look up the date. But it happens in January when we all get to the 0 degree point. It's because the nodes move counterclockwise through the zodiac. And so let me see if I can find it real quick. Um, but the nodes moving at 0 degrees Aries is kind of like an entire reset for all of us. We all get this heart, like everyone's going to start at the same. It happens the North Node at 0 Aries happens every 18 years. So, okay, it's January 11th. 2025 when the North Node will be at 0 degrees of Aries. So I'm bringing up this chart and I'm bringing up this information because the where do we go from here is you lean into yourself, your faith, your strengths. Lean into the lessons that you're being presented. It's a lot of something that I was discussing at an event recently, was that it doesn't matter how we got here. What matters is how we move forward. It doesn't matter how we got here. What matters is how we move forward. And when we have Pluto moving into Aquarius, one of the signs that, people think is so weird and so mysterious, but Aquarius is truly visionary energy. It's humanity. It really wants us all to focus on our communities and the people that we're around and helping each other. You know, if you live in a small town and maybe you help your neighbor lady all the time, or you help drive people to their medical appointments, or you get together with your local people and you help, meal prep for everybody for the year. Maybe you are, you know what I'm saying? My point here is that there is something to do with all of us working together in small groups as a whole. Are the financial systems going to change? Likely, yes. Likely, yes. Is technology and social media going to change? Absolutely. There's no way around that one. Social media will change, artificial intelligence, artificial super intelligence, augmented reality. What will become something interesting that I have foreseen for quite some time is, will humanity find a purpose on this planet will each of us find a purpose on this planet if there's no job? if you're not working the 9 to 5, and I realize that most of the people who are hearing this message don't work a 9 to 5, but you know someone who does. You know someone who works in a factory. You know someone who works a night shift. And so for those labormen or labor women, construction workers, what if AI robots are doing their job and they don't have a job anymore? I don't know about y'all, but I know people who work 12-hour shifts. And when they go from 12-hour shifts of labor work, where they're standing or they're moving about their factory job for a long time for 12 hours a night, and they don't have that for a week or so, or 2 weeks or something like that, they don't know what to do with themselves. So will humanity have a purpose if there are robots doing our jobs? Now, the short answer to that is yes, obviously. But and the other answer to that is it won't happen overnight. Same with the financial transition. None of this will happen overnight. I live in a small town where cash is still used for many things and by many people. You know, I live in a small town where tap to pay is not the priority. Most cashiers do not even know what it is around where I live. And so these things will not happen overnight, but they will happen. And it will accelerate as we move into Pluto and Aquarius, and certainly with Uranus and Gemini in July of 2025. So where do we go from here? We trust. We trust that even if it looks really, really bad, that God has a plan that's bigger than us, that our angels, our planets, the stars are on our side. As difficult as that is right now, we move forward by moving through our grief, our fears, knowing that fear is false evidence appearing real, and that grief is a necessary process. We move forward by zooming out and perhaps pulling away from our individual issues or life circumstances and seeing a bigger picture because maybe we missed something. And Pisces also rules media, like news media. And therefore, there could be a fog around things being portrayed in the news media. And I'm not presenting any of this as I'm right or wrong, or these are the answers, because I don't know everybody's situation. I know what this week has been like for me, and I'm moving through my own process about it. And it sucks. And it's painful. But I also know I'm where I'm supposed to be in this time and space, and I trust that God has a plan and that it will be revealed to me in the time in which it's supposed to. I think it's also important to understand or try to see a different perspective than our own, as challenging as that can be at times. Because the thing that I noticed leading up to, and this is not specifically about the election, but it was something I noticed around the election, But what I'm moving through in my own life has nothing to do with the election. That's what I'm trying to say. Like this, people are going through different things that look very similar to the election, even if it's not the election. Um, but the thing that I was present to during the leading up to the election was that each side, if you want to call it that, which we will, because it was an election, each side truly, viscerally felt like the other side hated them and wished them harm. And I noticed that leading up to the election, I kept drawing the devil in reverse tarot card in my wellness astrology videos. And I just kept thinking, and the I use the Star Trek Next Gen tarot deck, and the devil card is Lore, who's the brother of Data. And I have nothing positive to say about Lore. He was a terrible character, but I mean, he was a terrible character as in the things that he did, the actions that he did were truly awful and harmful. But he was manipulative and cunning and all of the things. Um, but I kept drawing that card in reverse, and I kept feeling this feeling that so many people, so many of us are so convinced or so like I said, we feel so strongly or so viscerally that the other side is hateful and hurtful. And I'm like, how can that be? Because I know people on both sides and I don't think of them as hurtful, hateful people. I think of them as my friends or, people who I could call in the middle of the night when I have an emergency. That's not a hateful person. But I also think there's a part here where it's like, one person's issues or one person's concerns are not another person's concerns. Every one of us has our own concerns, right? So, we kind of have to look at it from that perspective too. Yeah, we and understand that each person has their concerns, has their things that they need to change or to have changed. And it doesn't underestimate the painful process that which we're going through right now. So, the other thing I wanted to, so I talked about kind of the zoomed out sort of 2025 into 2026 perspective, but let me also mention two other things. Let me add some things to my chart. One second. Okay. All right. So, um, and this is the chart for right the here and now. And so let's look at Mercury and oops. Oh yeah, okay. Mercury and Venus, not so much notably Venus, but Mercury for particularly Mercury is currently in Sagittarius. He's in his pre-retrograde shadow. He has been since the day after, since November 6th. He entered his pre-retrograde shadow, meaning he'll go retrograde on November 25th. And so because of that, and Sagittarius is about belief systems, it's about higher education, it's about long distance travel, foreign affairs, foreign entities, that sort of thing. And so because he's going to fully retrograde in Sagittarius, I feel like that's significant. Like people could, have a powerful now. Let me back up. Let me take a minute here. Notably, we do have a full moon in Taurus conjunct Uranus on November 11th, 15th. And then Mercury goes retrograde about 10 days later. And so, a lot of things can happen, a lot of things can change, right? But what I'm pointing out here with this Mercury retrograde is that this is about belief systems, philosophies, religion, dogma, and whatnot. Okay. And Mercury goes retrograde 6 days after Pluto enters Aquarius. And he will be retrograde until, I believe, December 15th. Is that right? Boy, I need to get my dates solidified. I've been moving through a lot of charts lately, so my dates are all scrambled eggs in my head. But the point is Mercury retrograde. So Mercury is our thoughts, our mindset. It's our cognitive processing, it's communication, things like that. And so Mercury going retrograde fully in Sagittarius is indicative of, potentially changing your belief system. It's potentially like changing your mind or seeing things from a whole different perspective or something like that. And sort of maybe understanding things from a different perspective. Whether you change your mind or not, it's kind of like you can study 5 different religions, but you don't have to be 5 different religions, right? But you can have an understanding of 5 different religions or any number of religions, right? Okay, so that's Venus and Scorpio or Sag. She'll move on to Capricorn. She doesn't retrograde until some early next year. We don't need to talk about that today. But okay, let's talk about Mars. Mars is in opposition to Pluto. Right now, it's an out of sign opposition. He was on top of an opposition when he was in Cancer on November 4th, the day before the election. And so the significance here is that Mars was exactly opposite Pluto at 29 Cancer, 29 Capricorn, the day before the election. And that was the first of 3 oppositions that these 2 planets will make. Now, these 2 planets are co-rulers of Scorpio, which is the season that we're in right now, where the sun is at. And they both are in a power struggle. Cancer being about the home, nurturing, maternal issues, motherhood. Capricorn being about systems, structures, authority, that sort of thing. Now, they are currently in what we call an out of sign opposition because they are still within a degree, but because Pluto is still in Capricorn and Mars is in Leo now. But Mars will turn retrograde. He's in his pre-retrograde shadow, has been since October 7th of this year. He'll take his retrograde begins on December 6th, I think. Is it 6th? Oh boy. And so we will have 2 months of Mars retrograde. So he'll retrograde back and he will by then oppose Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius and Leo. That changes the flavor because cardinal energy, Capricorn and Cancer are cardinal, right? They are initiative energy, whereas Aquarius and Leo are fixed. Aquarius, Leo, yes. Aquarius and Leo are fixed energy. Leo is the individual, Aquarius is the collective. So we're going to move from that home and the home and authority axis to the collective, the individual axis. Changes the energy. It changes the game. So they'll be in opposition in early January, and then they won't oppose again until Mars stations direct and leaves Cancer and moves into Leo, and that happens towards April or May of next year. So we're in this Mars retrograde energy for a long time. So there's a lot of behind the scenes or sort of foundational work happening for us. And that means a lot of grief, right? Most of us have been through some sort of transformative work. We know that to get where we want to get, we have to dig up some darkness, right? We have to dig up some dark energy to get there. So I wanted to bring Mercury and Mars to your attention because they were both, Mercury entered his pre-retrograde shadow, shortly after the election, and Mars has been in his pre-retrograde shadow. So I have said this, I never really made an election prediction. I don't really get into that. Maybe it's because I don't feel like I know enough, but I also don't like to stir that kind of a pot. What I did say, however, was whatever happened in November probably won't matter to us by April. So keep that in mind that things could really change and really shift. And certainly the planet movement is there for things to really change and things to really shift. Um, and, we never know what's going to happen next, right? So, we've had two attempted assassinations on President-elect Trump this year, and he survived them by the grace of God, you know. But we've also had a lot of push for, women's healthcare rights and things like that. And so, I know that there's just a lot attached to this election. And what I would invite you to zoom out and take a look at is your emotional attachment. That's kind of a Piscean energy and part of the age of Pisces. And as we shift, I'm not going to say we're going to the shift from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius doesn't happen overnight. It takes hundreds of years to happen. We're on the cusp of it. Most of us probably will not see the transition in our lifetimes, but we're seeing the transformation that's ready from the age of Pisces through the age of Aquarius. And the thing about the age of Pisces is it's emotionally attached because it's a water sign. So it's emotional energy. It's what triggers us emotionally and to emotionally respond. Versus Aquarius is far less emotional, but more intellectual and more of that sort of strategic or strategy, game plan, long game. If you've ever met an Aquarius rising, I know a couple of them, they know how to play the long game, right? They know how to strategically put things in place and they can play the long game. They're not emotional about it. They don't crack. They just play the long game. So I don't say that to be discouraging about anybody's position about anything. What I'm saying is that you have to trust that, number one, the government as we know it right now may not be what we know it as in a year or two from now, because that's part of Pluto and Aquarius. Number two, what happened this week in the election may not be something you give two shits about in 5 months. You may not care because your priorities in life may shift. It also may mean that whomever was elected or voted for on election day may not be the person running the show by April. And that could transpire in several different ways, right? There's endless possibilities there because anything can happen. So trust the planets, trust that God has a plan that's bigger than we can conceive or conceptualize. Trust yourself. Trust your relationship with God Source Universe. Trust your relationship with the people who are dearest to you. Trust. Have faith. Have faith. Know that you are cared for, that you are loved, that you're here, that you chose as a spirit, as a soul to be a part of this, no matter how hard it got. That you are going to powerfully stand in your sovereignty, in your truth, in your integrity, that only you hold. Because nobody else knows and understands your heart, your soul, your integrity to the degree that you do. So please hold yourself close. Learn to trust yourself. Learn to see yourself and your unique perspectives and your unique ideas and your unique creativity. your unique heart, your unique soul. I fully trust that God has a plan. I fully trust that God has a plan before we ever knew there was a problem. And that even if it looks really icky in the moment, I trust God's got us all. The universe has us all. These planets have us all. And it's going to be okay. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. A little longer than I anticipated, but I felt like I needed to say these things because I feel like no matter what each of us is experiencing in this time and in this space, it's for a reason. And it's meant to be here because no getting to the next level comes without roadblocks and speed bumps and construction and potholes and a random snowstorm and a random monsoon and all of the things, right? No good road trip goes without something. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me for this video. I appreciate you so much. I'm sending you so much love, gratitude, and grace. Take care of yourselves and each other.